welcome to Trapper Snore, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We have a really special episode today, but first I would like to tell you a little bit about Trapper Snore, sustainable, natural, organic, and renewable resource. If you watch me before, I say this all the time. That's what we're about. And we're about supporting the heritage and lifestyle of fur trapping and sustainable and ethical fur resources. So today is a FurSHEDucation episode, and that means we get into the fur shed and we talk and learn from trappers. And we have a special guest today, but let me not forget, first we need to talk about our sponsors. We have none. Yeah, sorry about that. It's just me, trappersnore.com. But head over to trappersnore.com. It's just about supporting trapping, and there's a full library of all the content that I put out for free. So stop by. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, go ahead and send me a message from there and we can talk about it, because I'll probably be taking on some sponsors this year as I hope my channel kind of ramps up. Also, please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. You wouldn't believe how much that helps us YouTube content creators. When we get more subscribers, our content is spread out to more possible viewers. Okay, so let's get to today's guest. Today's FurSHEDucation guest is Jason Wisniewski. Jason is the president of Furtakers of America, a lifelong outdoorsman, a trapper. He's also a wildlife biologist and has worked on projects that saved or at least studied 65 different federally endangered species throughout the southeastern U.S. Jason is keenly aware of the needs of wildlife conservation, especially when it comes to fur bearers. He presides in Piedmont, Alabama with his wife Jennifer and daughter Jo Liz. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. I sent Jason, I guess what you would call a cold call email. I'm like, I'm just going to go right to the president of the FDA and see if he'll talk to me. This is a first time for me to have a remote guest. So congratulations. You're the first one like this. We're got a little snag on the software starting out, but we're here now. So yeah, tell me how the FDA convention went, because I know that just passed.
Oh, it was absolutely awesome. This is probably one of our best ones we've had in a long time. Some longtime members mentioned it might have been probably one of the biggest we've had since the fur boom in the early 80s. So that was really encouraging to see. You know, a lot of different folks there from all over the country. I know we had some from Alaska, Montana,
wow,
all over. Great event all around. One of the biggest compliments we got, because it was so blasted hot, was there was free water in coolers all around the place, and everybody really appreciated that, including me, because I usually forget to drink enough and then I get dehydrated and I feel run down. And it was probably one of the best conventions I've ever been to.
Oh wow, that is so great news. You know, it sounds like it's a sign, really. It's a sign that people are interested in trapping, and the vendors wanted to get out there. And the only problem with it was too far for me.
Yeah, it's that is the problem, being out on that side of the country. At least you know, where you're in the Northeast, and I guess that's out there kind of in the heartland, almost kind of central part of the country. It's a long way for a lot of our Northeastern, Southeastern. I think I drove 17 hours to get there, so it was a long way for me as well.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It sounds like all your hard work really paid off.
Oh, I'll say it was Mike and Kerry Mazur really spearheaded it up from the FDA. They just did a fantastic job, and I was smart enough just to stay out of the way and let them do their work. Of course, a lot of volunteers went into that as well, and you know, folks from the Iowa Trappers, South Dakota Trappers Association, and a lot of different folks from all over.
Wow, that's awesome. So I'm going to back up a little and just ask you, how did you get into trapping? When did you start trapping? What was your first experience with it?
That's interesting. I think my very first experience ever really wasn't so much trapping. It was fur handling. I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and the neighbor that rented a house from us, I guess his family, they were basically like an extra set of grandparents to me, and he grew up in that house. But he went out and he had some fox there that he you know, had taken. And this was back probably about 1982 or 1983. So that definitely in the heat of it all. And he needed help. He was just letting me help him turn some of those hides. And I remember that. And then, of course, nobody in my family really trapped. It was something that I really didn't get into probably till middle school. A good friend of mine that lived right down the road, he trapped, him and his dad, and he took me out on his beaver and mink and muskrat lines. I got at least some exposure there, but I never really ran my own line until I got into college. And it was actually one of my other best friends. He got into it that year. His dad had trapped earlier in his life and showed him how to do some of it. And we went out running coon lines. The bug bit me. We used to watch the Tom Miranda videos in our dorm room when we were in college. After that, I kind of wanted to trap myself. So I bought some used traps out of the local classifieds. And one of the smartest things I ever did was I got involved with our state association in Pennsylvania, Southwest Pennsylvania, where I grew up. They had a trapper training camp over the one weekend, and I learned an incredible amount that probably kept me from learning a lot of bad habits to start off with that I'd have to unlearn later. So I had pretty good success that first year. I only ran probably 14 or 15 traps, but I think I ended up with about, 10 fox and probably about 20 coons, and, just
Nice.
doing it on the weekends between classes at college. So
That's awesome. Well, you hit on a few things there. One that's actually, I think, extremely unique is that you started fur handling before you caught things. And it's most of us start trapping, they're like, okay, now what do I do with this to really take care of the harvest, and learning how to skin and how to get castor glands out or whatever it may be. So you got a hand on that first, and then you were probably like, hey, I could probably catch some of these myself, huh?
Yeah, it was just one of those things that it just really intrigued me. And, especially the canine trapping. That's kind of what I really enjoy, especially red fox. We don't have a whole lot of those where I live now, but,
Yeah.
the smell of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Pennsylvania was just loaded with them, and they still have a pretty good, healthy population. And,
Yes.
and I just always liked the idea of being able to go out into a field and knowing, where something can put its foot on a 2-inch by 2-inch plate out in the middle of a big grassy area, and it's still something that intrigues a lot of people that I take out with me.
Actually, I think Pennsylvania and New York trapping are pretty similar. We have a lot of similar terrain. I know there's a lot of big open farms and some flatter land out there in Pennsylvania in the West, probably, right? But the lakes and the hills, and it's just perfect for those red fox. Did you see gray fox too?
Yeah, we had a lot of gray fox as well then, and I don't know. I know those things have been decreasing all across their range. It seems like everywhere but the South. Yeah, we had a fair number of grays. Actually, it seemed like the grays were a lot easier to catch back then. Probably more abundant and, just more bold to jump into a trap.
I haven't caught a gray fox here on my trap line, honestly. I haven't seen one either. And I'm in mostly like open farmland, and my buddy's catching them, and it's mainly in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's where those grays are. Cool. So you got going in Pennsylvania while you were in college. How in the world did you handle fur when you were in college?
I didn't do a whole lot of trapping when I was in college. I was living out of a kind of a small. Well, it was. When I was an undergrad, I did a lot because I only went to school about 30 miles from where I lived. So it wasn't too bad. I could do a lot of that on the weekends and all. It was whenever I moved off to graduate school, I kind of had to take a step back because I was living in Tennessee, and I lived in an old motel that was turned into efficiency apartments, and there wasn't a whole lot of room in there, let alone room to try to skin anything. So every once in a while I'd do something, take it to the lab and let it hang.
Wow, amazing. So now, at least now we're talking about college. You were going to school. Did you go right away to become a wildlife biologist?
I kind of had an idea that's what I wanted to do. I was always interested in wildlife, and really, as an undergrad, I went to a small school that wasn't so much geared towards wildlife biology, but it, got the basic biology degree and then got the experience to go with it. And I did an internship with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission and realized I really wanted to steer towards fisheries. And it was one of those things I struggled through college, but I did that internship and it just came so natural, so easy for me. And I said, okay, that's what I want to do. And of course, found out if I wanted to ever make a livable wage doing it, I'd probably have to go on to graduate school. So, I didn't have great grades out of undergrad, but I had great experience, and that's what really set me apart. Whenever I got to graduate school, it was pretty easy, actually. It didn't really challenge me a whole lot.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I mentioned in the intro, and that's something that I read about you, is that 65 federally endangered species that you helped. What sort of things did you do there?
So, of course, my thesis work in graduate school, I worked with freshwater mussels, which a lot of people aren't aware, but they're probably one of the most imperiled group of animals in the entire world. North America is the real hotbed, especially the southeastern U.S. There's about probably 305, 310 species in all of the United States, and
I did not know that.
between the state of Alabama, they have about 182 species. Tennessee has about 140, and Georgia has about 125. And I've been fortunate to live in all three states and work in two of those three so far. So, and of course, with that great diversity comes a lot of imperiled species. So.
And so is that a lot of field work? You're out on the water all the time, and you're trying to collect data.
Yeah, I kind of, I'd partition the year off. Of course, living in the South, it doesn't get near as cold as it does up north, so we can go out a little bit longer. So, usually from about mid-April till about mid-October, I'd be out in the water 3 to 4 days a week, and snorkeling and diving in creeks and rivers, and doing all the field work, recording the data, and then once October came around, it was hunting season. So I took, all that comp time I got all summer long from being in the field. I would go hunt until about the new year, and then go and start crunching numbers and writing reports, publishing papers, doing all that stuff the rest of the year.
All right. You viewers here and you listeners, imagine that getting paid to go out snorkeling in the creeks. Well, you did get paid, right? You got paid.
Oh, I did. It was. They always say if you make your vocation your vacation, then you'll be a happy person. And I'll tell you, it was just absolutely great time. Did a lot of good work. Probably found one species that was thought to be extinct at one point, and of course, once we started finding them and they were able to do some of the genetics work, they found that it was actually another listed species, and hopefully that'll be moving that needle towards delisting. It's actually on the work plan to get delisted in the next couple of years. Got to work on some big cases, situations with water use in Southwest Georgia that actually resulted in a U.S. Supreme Court case. So it's kind of neat whenever you get to see papers from the U.S. Supreme Court deposing you for expert testimony and all. And, that was an experience.
I bet. One of the things that this is making me think about is us trappers, when we're out there in the wilderness, we're always observing. And I imagine that because you were doing wildlife biology work, it was your job to observe. Like you're constantly doing it. And did you, in those days, how did you record things? Did you have a folder with you, or how did you actually record what you were doing each day? Imagine you had to, right?
Early on, I would do a lot of paper, waterproof paper I'd take out there and just throw it in the clipboard. We'd collect everything, bring it back to a central location, and record all that data.
Gotcha.
Once, probably about 2012 or 13 rolled around, waterproof tablets, electronic tablets were very affordable then, and I saw an opportunity that I could put all my data in there, and then through a few simple functions in Excel or whatever, I could import it all into places I wanted to. So, what it used to take me 3 to 4 weeks to enter all my data after I would, have it on the data sheets and bring it back to the office, actually took that down to about 2.5 days. So I saved an incredible amount of time that left me the ability to analyze data and write it up and do all that stuff.
Yeah, thanks for answering that question. That's just the technology really advanced and helped you do that job better. And it's like us trappers today. I know a lot of guys use Onyx and We're able to use our smartphones to see exactly where we are, or GPS mark our trap sets and see property lines. And it's really handy stuff. So when you were out there, down there, were you trapping at the same time that you were working?
Not at the same time I was working. I mean, I would trap in the winter over mainly at our farm. Sometimes, we have a farm in Alabama that I live in now, but I'd do a lot of trapping there in the winter. Usually it would be restricted to about 2 weeks there right around Christmas and New Year's. And then I got busy with meetings and conferences and everything else I had to go to. So I didn't get to do as much in January, February, which, one thing down here, it's hard for a lot of it in the early part of the season because deer hunting is a big thing. Everybody has a deer lease or everybody's out deer hunting until the end of the season. But once the season's over, everybody's more than happy to let you go out and, take care of the coyotes or raccoons or anything else. But
Yes.
so I kind of just restricted it to about 2 weeks whenever I'd have time off over the holidays.
Yeah, it's pretty similar around here with hunting season and avoiding the Orange Army, as they say.
Mhm.
I'm one of them too. I like to get some deer in the freezer, but I'm more interested in trapping, so I try to be efficient and quick with deer hunting if I can. I was thinking about the benefits of trapping and also how we promote trapping. And often, when, let's say, for example, talk about bobcats. And bobcats, as we know, they're pretty secretive. They're pretty elusive. Even hunters don't get a lot of glimpses of bobcats. They know how to move around quietly and observe. And unless you have a ton of them, when you do go out and study them and you collect that data, I know New York State started last year putting out trail cameras. The DEC on some properties I was on was collecting bobcat data. So what you're doing as a wildlife biologist, you're collecting this data, and I'll get to the point of this. Someone who doesn't know about trapping or just looks at trapping and says, hey, you're going to trap all those bobcats. The bobcats are going to be endangered if we let you trap them. So then they say something like, I've never actually seen one, so they can't be. You're gonna take the one I'm gonna see away, and then we go ahead and we do the science. Science can be the trapper's best friend because guys like you and our DEC is out there studying, and they're like, you know what? They're abundant, right? And that's the data that you collected, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's so many of those things out there that are elusive. Bobcats, for instance. Very few people, even where I'm at now, see them. But if you know what habitats to go into and you're there, in those good habitats, you find out that probably more bobcats out hunting over the last probably 15 years between Georgia and Alabama than I've ever seen anywhere else, and it's just one of those things, being in those habitats, knowing what to look for. And then, of course, when you're out trapping, you realize that they're everywhere. It's just, it's just not something that most people are getting to see. And, and everybody wants to see these. We ran into it in Tennessee when I lived there. There was an issue with the one WMA that they wanted to do some cutting on and turn it back into early successional habitat. And, and all these hikers, everybody kind of came out of the woodwork and said, no, this is a beautiful forest, and unfortunately, it was overgrown, so there's no ground vegetation. You could see, 150, 200 yards through the woods. Well, that's beautiful to a lot of people that like to hike and everything. But, especially as a biologist, whenever I see something like that, I almost look at it and say, well, that's almost an ecological desert. There's no food, there's no cover for anything, so you're not going to see stuff in those kind of places. But, you go to the briars and the brambles and you get in all of that stuff. And then all of a sudden you start seeing gray fox, you start seeing your bobcats and, a lot of the other stuff that people just think that that's trash habitat, where, in reality, that's really good habitat. It holds the game. And that's why the bobcats and the gray foxes and everything else is there, because that's where the other species are.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. It's the thick stuff that's hard to get into. And, those hikers aren't really going there. They're not seeing them. But the fact is that in many places, like here in the Hudson Valley and where you are, bobcats specifically are doing really well. And we can harvest them and help them out, and they just keep reproducing. And, we're putting the furs into the garment industry or making things ourselves. And this is part of the sustainable, natural, organic, renewable resource, about trapping. So I want to also ask you, so you were, a wildlife biologist, and you were in that career, and now you're president of the Furtakers of America. So, and I guess you're a farmer too. How's your life going now, and what was the transition, and how did you get into being a leader at Furtakers of America?
I guess I'd read an article in the magazine, I guess real similar to how we got connected. I read an article several years ago, and it was actually had to do with science. It was, an idea that they had maybe about, reviewing a scientific paper on some fur bearers or some aspect of, fur bearers, and, kind of going and putting the review there just so everybody knows some what has been found. And I just emailed the editor at that time. It was Dave Hastings, and emailed him, said, I think that's an outstanding idea. There's a lot of great research that's been done that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. And then the other thing is, there's a lot of research that's done that, as I was an early scientist, I like to read the introductions and the discussions. I wanted to find out what they found, what they were interpreting it as, and got a little older and wiser, I guess. Then I quit worrying about that so much, and I just wanted to see the methods and results. And, and that's really important, because you can have a lot of these papers that say a lot of stuff, but if their methods and results weren't really on par with it, then they're, discussions really more their opinion rather than based on science. And I see that a fair amount. Most of the scientific research is pretty darn good. It's a process to get through peer review. But so I thought that was a great idea. And Dave Hastings said, it sounds like you might be somebody we need to get involved, or would you be interested in ever serving? And I said, well, I'd consider it. And then about a year later, he emailed me or called me and asked if I would consider running for one of the open board seats. And so I think it was in 2019 I was elected to the board. And then, and then it was, I guess I'm in the middle of my second term now as president. But Dave Hastings wanted to step down. He asked if I'd be interested in taking the role. And it was one of those, I said, well, I really don't have time to do that. And then I started thinking, it was kind of a selfish statement, because nobody really has time to do it. But if we don't do it, then we're going to lose the things we love. So, I kind of said, yeah, you know what? I think I will. And I was a glutton for punishment, so I came back for a second term.
Well, thank you very much for doing that, because, it's, as they say, it's like the 20% that do the 80% of the work. And, you're one of those people that stepped up to help out. While we're on it, go ahead and tell us about Furtakers of America and what y'all do to help trappers and why trappers should join.
Sure. So the Furtakers of America is one of the two national organizations representing trappers and trapping and fur bear conservation across the country. And we actually have members in Canada as well as the United States. One of the things we're best known for is our Furtakers College that's held annually up in Northeast Indiana. It's in conjunction with Purdue University. It was actually started in 1980. I think it was out in Colorado maybe that it started. It's kind of bounced around a little bit, but it's found a fairly stable home in Wolcottville, Indiana. And it's a great event. If anybody wants to learn a lot about trapping, it's 7 days of drinking from a fire hose. It's pretty intense. You're going from about 6 o'clock in the morning to about 10 o'clock at night, and a lot of field time out there setting, and just really great opportunity. The other stuff we do aside from that is a lot of advocacy, testifying in not court hearings, but legislative hearings each year. So there's a lot of legislation that's introduced each year in a number of different states. On average, there's probably about 20 to 30 pieces of independent legislation among all the different states trying to curtail trapping. Or, one of the big flavors of the week the last couple of years has been fur bans, trying to ban the sales of new furs anywhere within. It's usually been more successful at the local levels, kind of at the citywide levels, but a few states have been doing that. I know Massachusetts, I think Washington State, Oregon, Hawaii. There's been several states the last few years, and a couple bigger cities. Probably one of the best cases or best known has been out in Denver, Colorado this past year. It was a ballot initiative and try to ban all new sales of furs in the city of Denver. And fortunately, we contributed and worked with pretty much just supported the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management and Hands Off My Hat, and a couple other campaigns out there to defeat that bill, as well as a ban on the harvest of mountain lions and bobcats in Colorado as well.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of that kind of stuff, and just try to do the educational components, and supporting a lot of our state and I guess our state chapters and affiliates, which are usually the state trappers associations.
Yeah, everything you said is just amazing. And if we didn't have you guys, we probably would have lost a lot of things already. And I say you guys, and I'm one. I'm a subscriber. I'm a member. How much does it cost? Remind the viewers.
It's $40 for an annual membership, and that'll get you membership into the organization. You'll get a monthly magazine that's published, and those are the two major things. And of course, as a member, one of the benefits you get is we're the advocates out there that are fighting to try to push back on this legislation that seeks to take away the right to trap, or your abilities to trap. And, and that's really important nowadays, because we're seeing more and more people getting into it, especially for the wildlife management aspect. And,
yeah, of course. Yep. I know if we just have nuisance control, then we're not really probably even going to be able to use the resource, and we're just costing taxpayers more money. And, if the only people who could trap could be like damage control trappers,
And you're kind of seeing some of those results. There was a great case study published. It was whenever Massachusetts banned trapping back in the 90s. And, of course, what they saw was all the municipal, especially roadways and bridges, the municipality started having to pay the bill to hire nuisance trappers to go in and take that out. And it was costing, most of these places like $20,000-$30,000 a year to do the job that trappers actually buy a license to do.
For free. Yeah, actually not for free. We would have paid to do it.
Yeah. So they do that. And then, and the sad part about it is then these individuals have to go and, they take these animals out of those locations, and then, most of the time you're not allowed to sell the fur from them. And a lot of times it's in the summer when it's not valuable anyway. And so you're throwing those animals in a landfill and wasting them instead of, where they'd be used if you just let the trappers that normally would be doing that do their jobs.
Yeah, it's it's incredible. I really hope that we can continue trapping. I do see a positive wave going. I'm relatively new. I'm a 10-year trapper. I'm, completely hooked on this. One of the things that you touched on there was the Trappers College, and I have been studying that. And, something a lot of our viewers might not know is that the Trappers College is not just for beginners. You guys audit everybody who comes, and you have different levels, right?
That's correct. We, the first day you go and you have all your gear. If you don't have gear, you can, they have loaner gear that you go through, but they teach you, how to set it all up. If you're bringing your own, they want to make sure that there's certain things that's, taken care of, like swiveling, and you're paying attention and all that. But while you're doing all that, we're conducting, our instructors are conducting interviews, and they go through each person, and they kind of, say, okay, what are your goals? What are your, how long have you been trapping? What's your favorite thing? And then they assign you to a class, and the classes range from 1 through 5, with 1 being mostly individuals that have never even touched the trap, people that are very, very novice to, group 5, which may be people that have been trapping for 40 or 50 years or more. And, then everybody else is kind of assigned through there based on their experience. And, every one of the instructors is, more than qualified to teach in any of those groups. But the real strength of the college, in my opinion, is you have a lot of top-notch trappers that can go out and teach you how to trap. And, they're just on their own right. They catch the numbers, and they know, a lot of them probably know what the animals are thinking before the animals do. But the thing about it is they're not just good trappers. They're great instructors. They can actually teach that information, which that's not something you get everywhere. And that's one of the things that the college director and board really pride themselves on, is getting these folks that are courteous. They're, treat everybody with respect. They know that everybody's there to learn, and it's just a great learning environment with just a lot of great folks who have a variety of experiences. Whenever I was there, we had Bill Applegate come, and he was passing through, but he's probably one of the most well-known mountain lion trappers. He was out of Texas, and I think at that time he was up to like 1,100 mountain lions that he'd caught through the years, and that was mainly for depredation work on a lot of the ranches and stuff down there. But so you're getting stuff like that. You have Paul Anzac. He's on the TV show Mountain Men. He's one of our instructors, and he gives, good discussion on wolf trapping. So you have discussions on everything from ADC trapping, fur handling, up to, that stuff, plus your time in the field. And then the other good thing is you might be assigned to a certain class, but at the end of the day, after you're done in the field, which usually you're done about 2:00 or so, you come back to the camp, and it's all held at a YMCA camp, and everything, all the food and the board and everything's all done there. But
Awesome.
you get into round robins where you get a chance each day to go and sit in these other groups and ask the instructors different things. So you get that well-rounded trapping education.
It sounds like it's set up like an amazing time. I've only heard good things. I haven't attended. It's like a dream of mine. But I will say to the viewers out there that some of what Jason's talking about, even from when you started trapping yourself, you had a mentor, first in fur handling, then, learning out on the line. And that's one of the things that's important, I think, about trapping is finding a mentor, finding someone to help you get started. A good trapper is one that's always open to constantly learning. And probably not just YouTubing. There's a lot of great stuff on YouTube, and there might be a lot of stuff that's misleading. I've kind of learned that from the start. Now I can kind of see through some things that are probably not great advice, and then other things that are really excellent. But there's nothing like getting out on the line with someone who's doing it, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where I whenever I went and sat in on that trapping weekend workshop, I guess back in, I don't know if that was 1999, I think, or 1998, but it was one thing to watch. I said about watching some of those old videos, and you see it, but you still, until you actually put your hands on it and make the set, you still don't, it doesn't ring a bell. So you need to actually go out there, and when you have somebody that knows what they're doing, it can say, okay, don't do that. One of the things that maybe wasn't stressed well enough in most of those early videos was how important bedding was of your trap.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, that is probably the most critical thing aside from being on location. You're not going to catch if something's not coming through there. But once you're on location, if you don't have those traps bedded firmly, you're going to get an education. You're going to educate other critters as well. And so, just knowing what firm bedding is, until you see it, and get to feel it, you really, really don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's a practice over and over again. And actually, even great trappers, they'll start going out in September, just bedding in the backyard to get that muscle memory going and practicing again. I went on a ride along last winter out in Wyoming trapping with a friend of mine. He's a pretty well known trapper, Mark Charpentier, and they call him Chappie. And that was a really mind opening experience to me. Is it's definitely different style of trapping than we have here in New York, but I bed my traps a lot more like him now than a lot more like I used to. I got some, he puts a little bit more material over the trap than I used to, which is a really good idea because today's traps are going to jump right up through there. Don't worry about that. And yeah, and I listen to guys like Charlie Mashak and the in the dirt hole set guarding the hole. I know he's one of your instructors. Yeah, learning from some of these guys that have been doing it. Really, it seems like it gives you anywhere from 2 to 5 years experience in a short time.
It really is. It cuts off that learning curve so quick, and it keeps you, like I said, it kept me from learning bad habits to begin with. And yeah, I remember when I first started, everybody told me, they said, "Oh, fox are so hard to catch. You can't even breathe near your set. You're going to leave too much scent." And I seemed to had a lot of success early on. I was like, well, they don't seem to be that hard. And the other thing that got me is even growing up in Pennsylvania where it was cool in the winters, I can be one that doesn't do a whole lot of activity, and I just sweat profusely. So I'm just making sets and I'm dripping sweat all over them. And, a buddy of mine, at one time I took him out. He was the one that kind of showed me some stuff when we were in college. And he's like, "Oh, there's no way you're going to be able to catch it." And then, lo and behold, I ended up, catching something like the next day in that set. So it was, kind of eye opening, and he couldn't believe it. But yeah, there's a lot of those rumors like scent control and stuff. And I'll tell you, once you become confident in your sets, then you're going to have success. But if you don't have that confidence in it, then you're always going to be questioning yourself, and you're not going to be able to consistently catch.
Yeah. Now, since we're on that fox thing, why don't you talk us through what's your favorite fox set?
Well, for fox, of course, we don't have a whole lot of them here. We catch the grays a lot, but mainly it's incidentals and coyote sets. And but whenever I did trap red fox in Pennsylvania, my favorite was a step down dirt hole. And I really liked that. I did mine a little different. I kind of where a lot of people actually set it to where you'd step over the jaws onto the pan and then your dirt hole. I actually like to set mine where they would step between the jaws. And I could make that trap pattern much more narrow, and I could actually carve out a lot of the dirt underneath to get it set down in there. And of course, at that time, my go-to trap was a Montgomery 1.5, and I just was really able to pinpoint where they were going to step every time. And and you just use a good lure or bait, and actually, I got away from using baits even. Then I started using just kind of urine and lures to try to keep from catching as many possums and skunks. And
exactly. Now you want skunks though.
Yeah. So the price is up.
Saw that price go up, and we're like, okay, we want the skunk now. But yeah, the possums are a pain. So that worked out for you. Actually, Chappie just told me that this year. He said, because I have a spot where I'm trapping bobcats, where unfortunately it's private property. I have permission. No one else is supposed to be there, but there's some trespassers who walk their dogs out there, and one of those dogs got caught last year. Luckily the owner of the dog let him out, and he's fine and everything. But Chappie was telling me, you know what, next year maybe don't even put the scent in there. Just work that walk through where the cat's going with your trap, and let's just see what happens. So I thought that was pretty good advice. Maybe I'd like it if the trespassers weren't there, but I might take some of those high traffic areas and just do a blind set. And
I'll tell you what, that's one of the things that I try to, a lot of times when I'm teaching, I tell a lot of folks that the real fundamental basis of every set is a blind set. If you can get really good at setting blind sets, then you're going to make every other kind of set work well. And that's kind of the approach whenever I even put my lures and baits, whenever I'm making a dirt hole or a flat set, a lot of times I put the trap where I know the animal or think the animal is going to be stepping. And then I make my dirt holes or put my attractants in the appropriate locations to make them step in there. And it's really worked well for me. But, really it is that, if you go into making every set as a blind set, then I think it's, just put you that much ahead, especially on getting those micro locations knocked down to where you want to be.
Yep, exactly. I hear the kids in the background.
Yeah, my son just walked in. Here, come here. You want to say hi? So here's one of the reasons I do this, actually.
Awesome.
He's my little.
Who's that?
This is Zeke. He's my youngest son. He's only a year and a half old here, and
hey, Zeke,
he's my. You gonna say hi?
Hey there. Good to meet you, Zeke. So Zeke, does Zeke get out on the trap line a little bit?
He's not been out with me, but my daughter, she's been out quite a bit with me. And actually, I like to tell the story. When she was 4 years old, I had her out on with me the one day, and we had a deer set off the one trap. Yeah, but she was there with me, and we looked, and I could easily tell it was a deer because it pulled to the end, no struggle or anything. So I was going to reset it, and I had to reset the trap, and she's like, "Daddy, can I remake the set?" And I was like, "All right." So I let her cover it up and put the lure and the bait in, and we did all that. And next day, she had a coyote. So
that's awesome.
That really, I think that's a great example of. I mean, she was 4 years old and caught that. She needed a little help getting the trap open and getting it bedded solid, but
you
take care of that and you're on location, you're going to have success no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. What an experience. Now, was she able to check that trap and see that it got the coyote too with you?
No, she wasn't. She was here. She had friends over the next day, so they were there, but I brought it back, and she was so excited. And then first thing she asked me, she's like, "Daddy, can I help you skin it?" And unfortunately, it had a bad case of mange. And so I told her, I said, "No, we're not skinning this one." But it was still.
And how old is she now?
She's 7 now, 7.5. Okay. So
what colors do you have down there in your coyotes?
Oh, it's everything. Anything from reddish to a lot of black, and of course I've caught one totally black one.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Several years ago, there were several we saw running around on trail cameras and all, but most of them are just a mix of everything. A lot of grays and stuff like that. So it's not the real nice pale bellies that they have out west.
Yeah, when I was out there with Chappie, we were dealing with those, the finer, lighter fur, like, right back here on the wall. Here's like a typical New York coyote that's well, I wouldn't say typical because most of the ones I'm getting now are lighter gray, but that one was real red. And, that those red colors just aren't attractive to the Groenwald truck. Actually when it said last year, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, and he said it really wasn't worth anything. But that's worth a lot to me.
It was fun whenever, for that time I took a bunch of it to him, and, he looked at him, and he had one there. It was caught in New Mexico. And he said, "Yeah, now fill this one, look at it." And I was like, "Oh, geez, it's the world's different."
Totally different.
Critter.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I do want to say that the reason I called you, and you mentioned it earlier too, is because I was reading the president's statement in Furtakers magazine, and you inspired me, and I was like, "Well, that guy sounds cool," because you had this, and I should have it in front of me here, but I think it was mainly because you were talking about taking this positive approach and using YouTube and social media in the right way. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So, that's one of the things that I've really noticed. And it even goes back to when I first started getting into trapping, getting involved with an organization in Pennsylvania. And, kind of a lot of the stuff I would hear at the different conventions and stuff I'd go to, the folks were saying, "Well, we need to keep our heads low, and then we'll avoid controversy, and won't have the antis coming out against us and stuff like that. And unfortunately, what that approach has done is it's decreased the relevancy of trappers so much that most of the general public don't realize that trapping still exists. And this is, supported by research that's been done by the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and doing some surveys of people and asking their opinions. And most people were so unaware that they couldn't even intelligently answer the questions. And and that's going on further and further. We've, everybody else is out there on social media or wherever, saying, hey, look at this poor animal that is, I always use the example of the Sally Struthers commercials, which, we remember whenever we were younger, they were all over the TVs, and it's like, for just a few cents a day, you can, save a child or feed a child or whatever for a year. And, and that's what a lot of these groups are doing. They have content out there, and a lot of it they're drawing from the stuff they put up on the internet. And that's not exactly true information, but it's the only information that's out there, because we've kind of, a lot of our folks aren't real tech savvy, and they don't know how to put stuff on there, maybe don't know how to create content. A lot of them are so busy they don't have time to. But unfortunately, the content that's out there is being controlled or written by the people that are trapping out of business. And so at some point, we need to get a little more proactive and put good content out there and tell us what we really do, or tell our story instead of letting somebody else tell our story for us. And,
So I don't mean to tip my own hat, but that spoke to me, because I work really hard at what I do with being a content creator for trapping. I love doing it, but could I possibly catch more animals if I didn't do it? Probably. If I only concentrated on just the trapping, I would be doing that, but by stopping and using my camera and thinking about what I want to share with people, it does slow me down a bit. It's because I want to do what you're talking about. I want to put it out there in a positive way. Even people in my own family don't understand trapping, and I'm like, hey, I have a YouTube channel, watch a couple of my videos and, see what you think. Because this is a lifestyle that is so rewarding. It keeps you healthy. You're basically like a wildlife farmer. You care about the animals, you have empathy, you understand them better than anyone else. I can go on and on. You're the one who's the scientist. The science is behind us. We are taking a portion of these animals and we're using the resource, which is beautiful. It lasts forever if you want it to last forever, and if you don't want it, you throw it out in the backyard and it's gone in 2 or 3 weeks. Unlike all the poisonous fibers that are out there.
That's what a lot of people fail to recognize about trapping, that it's probably the most highly regulated outdoor activity that's done in the United States.
Yes.
It's all dictated by what state agencies have in their regulations and rules, and all that's based on science. And a lot of people say, well, these organizations or these agencies don't even know how many animals are out there. And they really don't. But one of the big ways that they can get a gauge on what those populations are doing is by harvest reports given by trappers. And what we're seeing is, the harvest isn't really increasing, of course, because the fur market's been so bad in the last 20 or 30 years, 40 years. But the number of complaints about those different wildlife, whether it be raccoons or, beavers, whatever, have skyrocketed. And so when you see your catches down, but the complaints are up, that population is really growing, and the maybe the number of people seeking to harvest those animals isn't. So we're really getting into a crux now where these animals are getting to be so overpopulated that there's some speculation that that a lot of the declines of spotted skunks and gray fox that we're seeing could be a result of the raccoon populations being so high and canine distemper coming in and, them being able to pass it. One of the great examples I like to use is, we think back to 2020 with COVID, and the big buzzword was social distancing. Well, wildlife can't really social distance. They're not going to listen to the CDC head or whatever get on there and say you need to keep your 10 feet or 6 feet, whatever. So the only way we can social distance them is by actually going out and harvesting them. And that's one way that we can help manage those populations to be more resilient. And, and a lot of people say, well, how can you harvest something like that if you love it? And one of the best rebuttals to that is somebody had brought up a friend of mine. He said, well, how can you say you love animals and you won't harvest it? Because it's so cruel what nature does to itself. And, animals are self-regulating. There's no doubt about it. As a biologist, I will say it. A lot of trappers might hate me for saying it, but the difference is nature, by definition, is inhumane. And the way it self-regulates is not pretty at all. It's a long, slow process. It's suffering. Something that's in a trap, it's only there for a couple hours, really. Most places have 24-hour checks, and chances are those animals aren't even in there until hour 14 or 15 goes by since you last checked it. And, so they're not in there very long, but, something that has rabies or distemper, it could be suffering for 3, 4, 5 days to a week.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to explain. I mean, we're speaking to the choir here on Trapper's Snore for the most part, but hopefully some new people are watching this and can hear you and understand that. And, trappers are one of the most engaged audiences in helping science. For example, when a state decides that they have what they're going to be able to work on, and then they have naturally licensed trappers are an engaged audience that can help collect data for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really crowdsourced data. All that harvest. A lot of states they're going and taking teeth out of bobcats, especially where they're trying to figure out the age structures. They may be taking some of the reproductive parts to look and see how many young they're having each year. And if you weren't harvesting these animals, you wouldn't really be able to do that at the scale that it needs to be. As biologists, the one thing we always say is you always want a larger sample size. Well, it takes a lot of time and effort, and frankly, most states, they only have one fur bear biologist to cover the entire state, and they have limited resources. They have limited funding they can put to it. So you have to really crowdsource that data the best you can, and that's exactly what we do. We get a lot of that stuff in there, and we crowdsource the management of it too, because that's what whether it be hunting, trapping, in a lot of cases, fisheries management, same thing. You need to harvest those animals to keep the population from exceeding its carrying capacity. And then when that happens, the species is resilient. Disease happens, everything else. And, like the case of a few species, they get overabundant and they might get diseased, and then they pass that disease on to other species that may not be as abundant. And then, of course, you're building into all these other, cascading effects, and it really comes down to knowing the connection.
A couple of years back, this was maybe like 5 or 6 years back, when you caught a fisher, you had to actually bring the carcass into the DEC. A lot of trappers know this. It's the one animal that can eat a porcupine. And when they did all the stomach content studies, it was like 1% or something. It was so tiny. Like yes, they can eat porcupine, but I don't think it's their preferred meal.
But there's a lot of research being done on coyotes right now. Or at least there's been probably over the last 15 years, especially in the southeastern U.S., as they got to looking more at the deer, and of course now the big questions I think throughout most of the eastern U.S. is with the turkeys. But they were doing a lot of those, I guess, looking at the home ranges of the coyotes, putting satellite transmitters and stuff on them so they could track them. And, a lot of people don't realize, but the way they captured that was using trappers that were fur trappers first.
Right.
They went in there, used the same equipment they use for fur trapping to catch these animals, to put radio collars on them, and caught them with using all the same methods there. Actually, a lot of the guys that did that are close friends of mine, or personal friends, and they've told me all about it. And they release those animals to watch their natural movement. And so, it's one of those things, these very things that the traps that a lot of people say are inhumane are actually being used in the scientific studies that we use to manage these species better, to conserve them. Thinking of the otters, for instance, they've been reintroduced in a lot of places, and those were all mainly caught with 1.5 victors, modified. So you could go out there, catch them, and there'd be very minimal damage. They could take them to zoos. They could take them to, do the reintroductions elsewhere. So, a lot of these same things that we use each and every day are the same things that's being used in this research, mainly by the same people that are, doing it. Because now, you want the most knowledgeable and experienced folks doing this stuff as you can find.
Yeah, and it's done ethically, and the animals aren't harmed, and they're going out there, and we're learning about them. Yeah, I have a feeling that you and I could go all night, and it really makes me want to even meet you even more in person. But let's finish up with a trapline story. What's can you think of one that was one of your most exciting days on the trapline, or maybe an experience at a set, or something wild that happened?
I'm going to merge my experience as a biologist and something that I think about often from a trapping aspect. But so we were diving down on the Altamaha River in southeast Georgia one time, which is one of the longest free-flowing rivers in all the eastern U.S., and full of gators and snakes and everything else, lots of neat mussels, and just one of my favorite rivers I've ever been on, probably the favorite, and a lot of bottomland swamps. But we were there, and we were doing a lot of diving, and we'd have to take our scuba tanks into the local fire department to get filled up whenever we'd run out. We'd usually take enough for 2 days, and we'd go get them filled up for another 2 days of diving. And so we took it in there, and the chief was there, and he saw us come in. We were, of course, in our DNR vehicle and dressed up, and he said, "Hey," he said, "you want to see our rescue and recovery boats?" And it took a while to fill those tanks, so we said, "Yeah, sure." So he took us over there, and he started telling us a story about a woman that drowned out in the river, and they had to recover. And he said they were out there. There's 3 of them in a boat. They were way overweight on the boat, and they were anchored at both ends, got sideways, and flipped them out. The 2 guys, they were able to get to shore, but the girl drowned, unfortunately. And he went into a lot of graphic detail and stuff on it. But he said they found her using cadaver dogs. And I think it was about 6 weeks later they found her. And she was about 13 miles downriver and caught up in a log jam. And cadaver dogs found her, and they had to send divers in. Well, she was 13 feet deep in the water.
Oh my goodness!
Those dogs were able to smell her. She was giving off enough scent up through the water. Wow. that those dogs could smell her. And I really take that from a trapping aspect. A lot of people think after, especially in the East where we get a good bit of rain, if you get a couple inches of rain, your lures and baits are going to be washed out. They're not going to be any good. You have to go reset and do whatever. And kind of the thing that I figured out from that story was I make my sets to last through the rain. So I net them good and use some good covering that's not going to get washed away. And I don't care if I get 5 inches of rain. There's many times that I've gotten 5 inches of rain, and a day or 2 later I've caught a coyote. And I figure if you're on location, it don't matter as long as you're using a decent lure or bait. No matter who makes it, most of the major manufacturers out there make decent stuff. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the business anymore. But if you're on location, those animals are going to be close enough to smell that, even if you get a bunch of rain. So don't ever let rain deter your sets. You're going to hear a lot of stuff on that, but those animals have a much more sensitive nose than anything we can imagine. And
Yes.
a bunch of dogs, rescue dogs, can find a body that's 13 feet down in the river.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there's no doubt that a fox or a coyote or anything else that's walking a few feet from something that has some pretty strong odors. If we can smell them, obviously it's pretty strong.
Yes.
So
It's lasting and lasting. That's a good one. Thanks for sharing that. And that's for all you beginning trappers out there, and even advanced trappers. Don't let you feel like the rain's washing your sense away. You can let it work. A lot of times after the season, I'll go out to my sets and I'll see where they've all been dug up months later. So I was like, oh, okay, that bait's still working in there. Well, thanks again. All the best to your family. All the best to your farming and your work with the FTA. And thank you from all of us here at Trapper Snore, me and the furs behind me at the moment. But I'm sure a lot of viewers are thanking you too. And good luck with your season. And we'll stay in touch. And this episode will probably be out pretty quick because I've gotten some people excited to hear from you and listen to this. And those of you who are watching, please subscribe. You wouldn't believe how much that helps a YouTube channel. And I've been putting my content out for 3 years now, and I'm trying to do better and better at it. So if you hit the like button, that helps me. And if you subscribe, that helps me because YouTube realizes, hey, there's people who may want to see this, and it will expose trapping to more people and get Jason's awesome conversation out there. And yeah, watch for more. Next episode for me is I'm going to do a little more work on the fur shed here, putting in a skinning system. It'll be a different try for me this year. And of course, making some wax dirt, and I still have to get through all my traps, but I won't bore you with all that. But I'll show you a few things that I'll be doing. Trappers are always working, right, Jason?
absolutely. Or if we're not working, we're thinking about anything we can do to make our lives easier for trapping.
Yep, that's for sure. All right, take care. Great to meet you, sir. And we'll
All
see
right.
you on the line.
Thanks a lot.